So today I'm going to talk about specific to salespeople roles, and this will kind of round out the three different roles I had teed up for sales and marketing. Again, we're looking at leading KPIs. Why? Because leading KPIs are the KPIs you track in your weekly meetings that precipitate action. So most salespeople, now I use salespeople in a loose term. This could be lead technicians that are responsible for converting in the context of emergency response. This could be desk-based coordinators that are responsible for converting through the context of scheduled services. Kind of doesn't matter, using it as a role generically to anchor some KPIs around the sales process. Okay, first one, super critical, estimate to job close rate. Now, within Pivot, we look at two different close rates. We look at lead to estimate close rate, which is a measure of our marketing efficiency, right? If our Google AdWord campaigns or our business developer reps are driving a bunch of junk in the pipe that we don't even want to estimate, that's a bad thing. We're not talking about that today. Today, we're talking about estimate to job conversion rate. So these are projects or jobs that have come in that we have an estimate for, and somebody's responsible for converting them to contract. What is the percentage conversion rate? Second one I want to talk about today, I love this measure. So it is within pending sales, lacking interaction. So you are assigned a given number of files, and your responsibility is to continue to interact with them until they are converted or lost. I like setting a threshold. For us internally, we use 7 days. So my expectation was if the file's in pending sales, it must have documented interaction every single day if your name is assigned to it. So then that way you don't end up in that space of a bunch of files sitting in pending sales and they've been there for so long, you're kind of like, are we even going to chase after them? How many of these are real? How many of them aren't? You're battling with your team because there is this propensity to hang on to those files because nobody wants to say no, they didn't convert, especially when the outcome is unknown. So what do? You measure upstream in the form of files lacking interaction to compel that interaction, so then that way you know the outcome of the file. You're not sitting there guessing. My third one, I love cycle time metrics as well. The way that we used to measure it is date of estimate approved. So once we know the estimate has been approved from the insurance carrier, sometimes if you're working directly with a client, it's automatically assumed that the estimate's approved. You don't have a third party that you have to work that estimate through. You can skip this step, but making sure that the estimate, because there's the conversation we have with the carrier, and then there's the conversation we have with the client. I'm talking about the conversation we have with the client. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, adjuster signed off. We're ready to do the work. Here's our contract. When can we get this started? I like measuring the duration of that in days and holding to a 3-day average. So then that way you've got the leading indicator of files lacking interaction as a metric to make sure that people are compelled to have the action. But you also have this measure of how long things are getting stuck in that cycle. And these two kind of work hand in hand, right? So if we make sure we have substantive interaction every single day, we should know the outcome of the file. But we should also know our cycle time, our speed at which we're converting those files. And this really starts to layer into an overall architecture of cycle times and how fast we can recognize cash. If we know that on average it takes us 5 days from the point that we get the estimate approved until we get the agreement approved, and then we know our cycle time is 14 days from when we get the contract till we start the work, and then we know the average dollars of production per day. At the point you have the contract, you should be able to know and understand exactly when the cash is going to show up in your business, or at a minimum, when it's going to be recognized as produced revenue. So those are my 3 metrics for salespeople that are leading KPIs that precipitate action. Feel free to comment below. I'm not the guy that has all the answers. I'm just trying to put some good stuff out into the environment. So then that way, if you're struggling with this, you have something to grab onto. But I don't have all the answers. If you've got some metrics that you're tracking inside of your organization that you're like, hey, we landed on a silver bullet that works for us, that's the conversation I'm trying to get started here. I think we all learn better together as a collective team than we do just working in our individual silos. That's why we facilitate peer groups here at Pivot. That's why I make an effort to be visible and interact with the industry. Selfishly, it helps me learn more. And I'm not content just sitting in my office thinking I'm God and know everything, right? So keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for taking a look at us. And let me know if you have any questions.